You might not know James and Jennifer Crumbley. Although they've been in the headlines enough in the last few days, you probably do. We got a call about them yesterday. James and Jennifer Crumbley have been sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison because their son murdered 4 people at his school. Ethan Crumbley was 15 years old. He murdered 4 classmates. He wounded 7 others at Oxford High School, November 30th, 2021. The names of the dead are Tate Meyer, he was 16. Hannah St. Juliana was 14. Madison Baldwin was 17. Justin Schilling was 17. The parents are going to prison. How can this be? I have seen gun rights activists outraged by this. We've gotten calls to the show about this. There's always a concern about a slippery slope. Are we going to start now if someone does something bad, are we going to punish the parents? Actually, constitutionally in this country, there's actually a constitutional provision. We can't punish people for their relatives' crimes. But this isn't the case here. Now, I had a law school professor, my torts professor, Professor Cresswell. He used to say all the time when people talk about slippery slopes, it's only a slippery slope if you choose to slide. And we may slide down this. I'm not saying we won't. But I want to give you the facts of this case because a lot of people are whipping, particularly gun activists, into a frenzy over this case. That how can it be that we're sending 2 parents to prison for involuntary manslaughter for failing to stop their son's mass murder? I want to give you the facts of this case because I think the jury got it right. Why do I think the jury got it right? Because Ethan Crumbley was 15 years old and his father bought him a gun. I bought my kid a gun when she was 15 years old. Now, it didn't say in her name. She's too young, but it was a gun meant for her. It was a .22. My kids are good shots. We've had them using guns since they were young. Given security issues in our family's house, we have a lot of guns, and we want our kids to know how to be safe around them. We live in the South, where lots of people come into contact with guns. We want our kids to know how to use guns, how to be safe around guns. What not to do with guns. You never actually pull the trigger with a gun. You always assume every gun is loaded. We wanted them to be safe. We keep them locked up. We keep them out of their hands, but we have guns that we bought for our children that when they turn 18 will be their guns. But my children are mentally sound, and Ethan Crumbley was not, and his parents knew it. Not only was Ethan Crumbley not sound, but his dad was, the type, I got the Second Amendment right, and I'm going to use my right, and my kid's going to use his right. We're going to use the Second Amendment. By God, you can't stop me. It's my constitutional amendment. And he went out and he bought his son a gun, and 4 days later, his kid killed kids at his school. But not only did he kill kids at his school, but that morning, the morning Ethan Crumbley murdered 4 kids, his parents were summoned to the school because Ethan Crumbley had drawn a picture of a gun, a human body bleeding, and the words, "The thoughts won't stop. Help me." The thoughts won't stop. Help me. The meeting lasted 12 minutes, and Mrs. Crumbley said, "Are we done here?" She defended their right to have guns and to have their son have a gun, but the parents knew something the school did not know. The parents knew 4 days before being shown this picture by the school staff that their son drew of him murdering his classmates and writing the words, quote, "The thoughts won't stop. Help me." The parents had bought their son the gun he used to commit the murders. Have you heard that from any of the people trying to drive you to outrage over these people? Let's talk about something completely different for a minute. Happened in my local community. Some parents threw a keg party for a group of high school kids. They were underage, shouldn't have been drinking. The parents let them drink. The kids got drunk. And one of the kids, drunk, left the party and got in a car wreck. Do you know who was liable? Yeah, the parents. The parents who let the kids drink and let the kid leave drunk, and he got in a car wreck. Yeah, the parents were liable. Parents went to jail, by the way. The parents went to jail. There's no difference in the hypotheticals. There's no difference other than one was alcohol involved, one was a gun involved. The parents knew their son was struggling with mental health, serious problems. They knew it. The parents knew it. They bought him a gun anyway. They took it's our Second Amendment right. You can't stop us from buying guns. We're going to buy our kid a gun. We don't care about his problem. He's allowed to have a gun. We're going to buy him a gun. So they bought him a gun and he killed people 4 days later. And when confronted with a drawing of his son that his son drew, murdering his classmates, saying the thoughts won't stop, help me, the parents never told the school, you know what? We bought him a gun 4 days ago. We better go check and see where it is. No. They argued with the school. They defended their son's Second Amendment right and their Second Amendment right. They said, are we done here? We promise we'll get him help if you let us leave. And they walked out the door, and his son that same day murdered 4 people. You are your brother's keeper, but you are your children's keeper, particularly when your child is 15 years old. Your child doesn't even have a contract right until they're 16 years old. They need a legal guardian, even in those cases, usually with some waivers from courts. You got a 15-year-old, a handgun, and 4 days after it, you know your kid is mentally disturbed and he murders 4 people. And not only are you defiant, you say it's your constitutional right to do it, and they can't stop you from doing it. You are responsible for your children, and you are responsible for raising your children. And when your children clearly need mental help, your position should not be to double down, by God, it's my constitutional right to do this, and you can't stop me, and it doesn't matter if he's got mental issues. Your position should be not to placate your son with a handgun, but to get him the help he so clearly needed before he murdered his classmates. And you're defiant and saying you can't believe you're going to jail. You're damn right you're going to jail. You bought your kid a gun that he used to murder people, and you were confronted with proof that he clearly had it on his mind, and you didn't even tell the school, oh my gosh, our kid has a gun. No, you said your kid has a constitutional right to a gun. The level of self-centeredness and self-absorption of these two people, it's only a slippery slope if we choose to slide down it, people. And in this case, we're not sliding down it. We're doing the right thing here. These people were irresponsible, and their irresponsibility led to their son actually killing 4 people. They had guns in the house their son couldn't get, from what I've read, but he could get access to the gun they bought him and the ammunition to go with it. My aggravation here is with the Second Amendment supporters, of which I am one. But the ones who are like, I can't believe they would punish these parents for what their son did. They're not punishing the parents for what their son did. They're punishing their parents for clearly playing a role in leading their son to do this by their direct knowledge that he had intentions in his head of committing mass murder, and they bought him the weapon with which he would cause that mass murder. I can't believe the people who are so dogmatically fixed they can't even see what actually happened here. And not only that, the people who are telling you this story to get you outraged, who are leaving out the key facts. I had no idea when I first heard this that the parents were confronted with his drawing. The morning of the mass shooting, they were confronted with the drawing that their son drew of him contemplating murdering his classmates. And instead of telling the school, oh, we bought him a gun 4 days ago, they defended his Second Amendment right. Y'all, I have guns for my children. We take my children shooting. My children aren't suffering from mental health problems. My children have not expressed a desire to commit mass murder. if my children had mental issues, had expressed a desire to harm their classmates, we would be getting them help. My children were bullied at their school, and we kept showing up at the school, pushing the school to do something. When the school wouldn't do something, we moved our kids out of the school to a different school. You're responsible for your children. But you are not going to be found guilty for your children's crimes because your children committed those crimes. But when you buy your child a gun, 4 days later are confronted with the fact that he's contemplating mass murder, and you do nothing other than defend your right to the Second Amendment and say, well, we'll get him help. Can we leave now? And then within hours, he kills his classmates. Yeah, that's involuntary manslaughter. You played a role. And I'm just, there's no justification here for what they did. And even at their hearing, they were absolutely unmoved by the fact, thinking they had played no role in this. It's not their fault, and they shouldn't be blamed for what their kid did. They can't even own up to the fact that they, as parents, showed horrible judgment. Horrible judgment. When Cain killed Abel, he said, am I my brother's keeper? Yes. You've missed the whole, if you say you're not, you've missed the point of the story. But this isn't about being your brother's keeper. This is about parents are their children's keeper, and they did a terrible job, and they're going to pay the price. And don't give me the slippery slope here. Even the prosecutors in this case have said this isn't about sliding down a slippery slope, and this isn't about punishing people for their children's crimes. This is about they bought their child a gun when they knew he was mentally disturbed, and 4 days later, confronted with the desire to murder his students, they did nothing, and within hours, he murdered the students. And it just frustrates me to no end that there are Second Amendment groups out there trying to make you get scared and please write us a check so we can fight back against this stuff, and they're leaving out the relevant details. These were people who committed malpractice in the act of parenting, and they're paying the price. And frankly, they should.